Welcome to Dance Uncorked podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Jean, and today I am joined by a friend, a past colleague, a dance partner, a fellow artist and creator, Bryant Henderson Shea. Thank you for being here.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we are going to talk about dance, but before we get into that, we're going to drink some wine. And today's a double whammy because you're in Alabama and I'm here in Oregon. And the game is always, let's see if we can find the same wine across the country. And sometimes I'm very successful and sometimes I am not. So we went with the theme of red blend today. And Bryant, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a red blend by Estero Wines or Estero Vineyards from California. It was a find at my local Trader Joe's.
Nice. Okay. And then I am drinking Edgefield Vineyards Black Rabbit Red. The vintage is 2018 and it's from the Columbia Valley. And it's part of the McMenamins franchise. So let's talk about these two wines. I'll talk about mine first. So Edgefield Vineyard is located about 20 minutes east of Portland. And the Black Rabbit is actually the fabled mascot of this entire vineyard. So you can always find the Black Rabbit Red, and they also have a White Rabbit white wine that they usually have on tap in the McMenamins, or they sell them by the bottle. They'll just always have those. Those are kind of like their staple wines for their restaurants and their pubs. And part of the McMenamins franchise, what the heck is McMenamins? And I've been trying to, like, if you don't live in Oregon or like in a place where they have McMenamins, it's actually really hard to describe what that is. But I feel like the winery did a great job of kind of wrapping it all up into like one elevator speech. So I'm just going to read what they wrote right off of the website. So McMenamins has been a neighborhood gathering spot throughout Oregon and Washington since 1983. We handcraft our own beer, wine, cider, spirits, and coffee. So they literally make everything. And we offer an eclectic mix of pubs, historic hotels, movie theaters, concert venues, spas, events, on-site shopping, and just pure fun. So join in. Like, it's an adult amusement park, I feel like.
Absolutely. And then when you go inside a McMenamins, that's exactly how it feels.
Have you ever stayed in one of the hotels?
I haven't, but I've heard about them.
I've heard about them too. And I've heard, especially the ones like up by Portland and McMinnville, they have like 4 or 5 bars, even just within the hotel. The bowling, like they have like the movie theater. They have a movie theater inside one of them. I'm sure, wouldn't be surprised they have a bowling alley at some point in one of them too. But it kind of reminds me of like a cruise ship, but on land.
There you go.
Which,
so I think
yeah,
I think I need to plan a trip and come out there, and then I already have a place to stay.
Exactly. I'll meet you there. How about that? So you can really only find this red blend at the McMenamins pubs or gathering spots. They do have a wine club. So even if you live out of state or you're in a place where they don't have McMenamins, you can also join their wine club and get their wine and cider and like other thing. I think they make whiskey too. Like they make everything. So there's a way you can get their stuff, even if you are not in a local area where they exist. So
that's exactly what we did. Having lived in Oregon, this wine that you're drinking, it has a sentimental place in mine and my husband's heart, because whenever we had like a long day, especially after school or something when we were in Eugene and just wanted to go and unwind, we would go down to the local McMenamins. We would order a red blend, the Black Rabbit, and sit on the edge of the Willamette River and eat tater tots and drink wine next to a fire.
Yeah.
In the nice, cool, crisp weather that's out there. So a lot of fond memories. And then when we relocated to out of state, we were able to order that wine so we could still make those memories. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Yeah, no, that's awesome. We both, I remember taking a backseat. Bryant and I went to grad school together here in Oregon, at the University of Oregon. And we've spent many times, there's a McMenamins on the corner of campus actually. And we've gone there post show, how many times, and another like little local spot right next to it. But that was like a hit for us, was that little spot, because they stayed open late. So it was easy to go there. So this red blend, the Black Rabbit Red, is a Bordeaux inspired blend. And it's made with Bordeaux type varietals, such as like Merlot, Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, also with additionals like Syrah, Tempranillo, and Zinfandel. So big, like we're talking big. Bordeaux is big, and we're doing big reds. So I'm actually really excited that you suggested this to me, because I love a big red, so I'm all about it. And then it's been this particular red blend, they've been making this for over 2 decades. So like I said, it's their staple. It's not going anywhere. It's been around for a long time. And I'm supposed to taste ripe Marionberry, out Oregon, and dark cherry, cedar spice, and cocoa. And then I think another tasting note on the website says faint mint. So I'm like intrigued by this. So that's my wine. Some work that I've done to learn about the Estero vineyards is actually, it's a California red blend. And it's, I think on the bottle, it says like, ask for forgiveness, not permission. And it says bold and fearless, a wine without rules. Yes. So while it is a wine without rules, it is also a wine without like a website. And it's really hard to find information on this wine. And Bryant has a theory about that. But there's not a lot of info on the web, but you can find it like at Total Wine, more like wholesale purchasing type websites. You can actually find it. Or if you happen to be in a place where there's a Trader Joe's and they happen to carry it, then, because like they didn't have it at my Trader Joe's, but it's one of those random things, and it's such a Trader Joe thing to do, just have this like random wine that's really hard to find. But it's supposed to have robust layers of dark fruit, plum, toasty oak, and spice. So I feel like that even though we're drinking different red blends, there's some characteristics that are going to be the same. And yeah, I don't like, it was really hard to find any information on this one.
Yeah, I agree. So I've been doing some internet sleuthing myself, and I'll share my hypothesis if you'd like.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that I think this is just one of those wines that Trader Joe's or whoever's on the procurement team for TJ's went out. They found this local vineyard or winery in California that made a very similar wine, and they're like, hey, can we take this and make it our own, and we'll just rebrand it if you'll keep making it for us? So I think that may be what the case is, since the local winery does have their own brand that has very eerily similar bottle and design.
Yeah, I kept running into this other like name, and it was very similar, but I was like, that's not it though. Like, that's not the name I'm looking for.
Yeah, and it's, in Trader Joe's style, it's half the price too. So
it's a great price.
Yeah, it's like $9 at my local.
I think on Vivino, which is like a wine database, I guess, it scored like 3.8 stars out of 5. So that may be worthless to some people, but I don't know. Like, that's something for, if I know a lot of wine people are like into points and things like that. So it's not the traditional point scale according to like the national, international wine, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. You like it. I think I would like it. But we're going to try our reds, and we're going to see if we get our tasting notes. Cheers.
Cheers.
Whoa. It's a big red.
That one, yeah, yours is a big red. It's been a while since that one's been on my palate. Couple of months.
This is awesome though, because it's big and kind of like earthy up front, but then it finishes really jammy and juicy. Like it makes me want like a McMiniman's burger after I'm done drinking it. I'm like, whoa, this would be good with one of those, or like the tater tots. Like you kind of want the food that goes along with this. But I definitely get the dark cherry. I don't think I got mint. I don't, maybe I keep drinking it. Hold on.
I don't recall mint from that wine, or I don't recall having that flavor on my palate.
No, I don't get the faint mint. Yeah, I'm not getting that one. Definitely some spice. But I would say it's more, at least this bottle and this vintage. Let me go back. At least this vintage, and then maybe even just this bottle that I got. It's more fruit forward for me. How does your wine taste?
I'm glad to hear that, because that's exactly what this one is extremely fruit forward.
Oh, good.
And full transparency here, I'm not a big red wine drinker.
No.
I don't really like a red wine, but I also thought, we're doing this in the winter, I'm probably not going to bust out a white wine. So maybe, no judgment.
I would have
your white wine all year long.
Yeah.
But I was like, let's be a little seasonal. So I decided to try a red wine. And anyways, it's what I love about it is it's super smooth in the first taste. And because I don't like a red that's going to bite you back a little bit. It's just not my style. It goes down very easy, and it's very, very jammy as well. My taste has a little bit of like that cedar, oaky kind of aftertaste too, but it's very smooth.
Yeah. No, and I'm really glad that you suggested this to me. And thank you for suggesting this to me. This is such like a sentimental wine to you. So the fact that I get to like kind of share that with you for this podcast episode is really special. So thank you for that. I can totally see you on the McMiniman's patio drinking this, like after like a composition class or something. Like something.
Totally. I don't even know if I could order it now if I wanted to, because I live in Alabama, and prohibition and all.
I know it's certain states like prohibition still exists. It's kind of weird when it comes to selling wine. It's so weird. Oh, that was so good. This is like a new favorite of mine, I think. I'm definitely gonna order this when I go there. If I'm not in like a beer mood. Because like I said, they make everything at McMiniman's, and you can get their cocktails, you can get their beers, which is usually what I get. I'm into their beers, but now I know about their wine. So thank you, Bryant.
Of course.
Good choice.
One of the things I also love about this one is I thought it was unique that it's in a clear bottle. Like that's not common for a red wine.
No.
It's always usually in a green glass bottle.
Mine's green.
Yeah, I just thought that was really cool too. And you get to see the jammy.
Like deep purple.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, that is a nice one. It kind of teeters on like it may be like brandy, or it may be wine, like, or maybe you don't know until you find out, so you got to buy it. And good marketing, good branding.
Absolutely.
Well, let's get started with talking about dance. So before we get into our topic of season 2, just in general, tell us a little bit about yourself when it comes to your experiences in dance and your history, just like a brief rundown of who you are and where you've been and what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm originally from Alabama. I danced my whole life since the age of like 5. I was at my local studio taking, tap, jazz, ballet, everything under the sun that was offered. And I also was highly active in sports and other arts as well at that time. But dance was the thing that seemed to continue to always endure, and that I never really wanted to give up on, even despite growing up and maybe even dealing with some teasing about it and things like that. It was the thing that I just always wanted to do. So I stuck with it, ended up going to the University of Alabama to study dance and public relations. So I graduated with a double major from UA. And then after completing my degree, I was like, I've grown up in the Deep South my whole life. I've been here for like 21 years of my life at that point. So I was like, let's try something new. And I just said, I'm going to move to New York. So I hopped on a plane to move to the city. I didn't even have a place to live yet. I didn't have work lined up or anything. I just moved. And like at the airport, I was calling people and trying to find a place to live. So by the time I got to New York, I had a connection and I found a place to live. And while I was in New York for about 3 years, I danced with a few contemporary and ballet pickup companies, some smaller companies throughout the city, but was always doing work and finding opportunities to perform left and right. But New York is cold, and I am a Southern boy. So
yes, you are.
So after like 3 winters of like brutal snow, I decided to hop on a cruise ship. So I started dancing for Celebrity Cruise Lines as a dancer and an aerialist for about 3 years, touring the world. I'd never been out of the country before. And then by the end of the contract, I'd been to like 40 different countries. So I thought that was an incredible experience, and what a great way to live your life as a young performer. But during that whole time, I knew that I always loved to teach, and the teaching dance was where my passion kind of lived. So I was starting the process in my second contract of looking at what opportunities are available for graduate study. And I landed on the University of Oregon as a program of study that I wanted to pursue. So after my last contract, I hopped off the boat and took a summer at home, and then moved out to Eugene, Oregon, with my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, and went to graduate school to get my MFA in dance. And then after I completed the program there, I decided to pursue a career as an academic. So I started teaching in higher education, and I was an adjunct professor at a community college in Eugene, Oregon, called Lane Community College, as well as Willamette University, which is a small liberal arts university in Salem, Oregon.
Mind you, these are like an hour apart, right?
Oh yeah, they're like an hour apart, but I was zooming back and forth up the highway.
I was like, where are you today?
Yeah, exactly. And then I applied for a job and got an opportunity in Cleveland, Ohio. So I accepted a visiting assistant professorship at Cleveland State University. I'd never lived in the Midwest before, and I was like, all right, let's try this adventure. So I was there for 2 years, and then I needed to relocate back to home for some family reasons. And that's how I ended up back in Alabama. And now that I'm here, I'm teaching when I can and choreographing when I can, and working a full-time job. So
yep. Which makes you a perfect candidate for season 2 of this podcast. And I know during your time, even in New York, and even growing up, prior to the cruise ship and all those things, as dancers, we are constantly, I feel like, and I say this even now, like, we're hustlers. Like, we are always looking for that side hustle, or multiple side hustles sometimes. So I know that you've dipped your toes into lots of different industries over that time period, just to kind of like, that's how we paid the bills for a long time, when we were trying to piece together sometimes part-time like teaching gigs, or just gigs in general. Like, then maybe they season out and you have like 3 months before the next thing starts. So even cruise ships are like that. You don't necessarily get so lucky to jump off of one boat right into the next. You might have some time in between, and you're like, where do I live and how do I pay my bills? So with that being said, what are 3 ways, or your list of ways, that dance training and your experiences in dance have helped you find success in a career that's outside of dance, or outside of a regularly like teaching assignment, whether you're teaching movement or you're consistent, something outside of that consistent gig or that consistent choreographic endeavor that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So you posed this question to me. So I had a little bit of time to think about it before we connected today. And I made a list, more than 3, of some of the skills
Right.
that I think we all, as dancers, performers, choreographers, teachers, however we may identify ourselves, I think that we kind of all experience these and learn more about ourselves, and our relationship to these skills, and how useful they are to us, both inside the studio and theater and outside it. So we'll just talk about a few of them.
Okay.
The first one that came to mind to me was simply collaboration. I know it might sound a little bit cliche, like, of course, every dancer does collaboration, and who doesn't have to collaborate at some point in their career, outside of or inside of their career, despite whatever it is. But I think if we really think about the kinds of things that are expected of us as a dancer or a teacher or a choreographer, especially when it comes to producing shows and getting our work presented to the public, I mean, it's all collaboration. Like, we're trying to communicate and engage with other artists, whether it be a lighting designer or a scenic designer or a costumer. We're trying to engage and connect with our dancers and our fellow choreographers who we might be sharing a bill with. We're trying to connect with any box office personnel or marketing people or whoever the other stakeholders in the entire experience might be, to get our product across the finish line. So I think that collaborative skill is something that we all have developed and naturally in what we do. And it becomes a huge asset to us as we as we start to look for work outside of what might be our traditional area of work. So,
yeah. Well, and I just want to take that a step further too. Like when you say collaborate, we're not just collaborating like within the rest of the dancers that are involved in whatever project what we're doing. You mentioned like, lighting design and costuming and stuff. Like I'm going back and I'm thinking about a lot of the grad performances that we had, and every other year we actually collaborated with the theater department. And while we are of the same, overarching umbrella of like theatrics or entertainment or however you want to put that, like we are on stage and we are performers, right? Like that's the common denominator here for everybody. But there's a difference. Like there's a difference with collaborating with dancers and like a costumer or a lighting designer for a dance piece versus like a scene in a play. So not only are we just collaborating with people, within the process itself, but we're used to collaborating with people who don't necessarily understand our process. And we kind of have to find that middle ground. I mean, I'm thinking about Walter's piece that we were in, and it was very theatrical. So our costumes were actually not dance costumes. Like they were like something that an actor would wear. And we were kind of like, okay, but like I also have to make sure that I can do like a fan kick in this. And you're lifting me up so the skirt doesn't need to like be in your face like when we're doing all that kind of stuff. So I immediately went to like that memory. And just really, I think that's a really valuable skill, like not just collaborating, but like collaborating with people who have like maybe don't know the process.
Right.
We could communicate that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it started me. So I was thinking about collaboration as like a soft skill in this that we develop, but I was thinking, it also can kind of turn itself into a hard skill. So one of the things that I think I do on a daily basis now in my full-time corporate job, my non-dance job, is project management. Yeah. So collaboration is just, or the way in which we organically collaborate in our dance world. If we kind of zoom out a little bit, all we're doing is project management through that work. We're thinking about who all the necessary stakeholders are in this experience and trying to make sure that we get finalized dates in line. We need to know what products are done by what date. We need to know who's going to be in charge of the budget. We need to know what our budget is, how far over budget or under budget should we be aiming for.
Right.
So there's all those factors that get experienced in our theatrical world that become extremely transferable to us when we leave that space, that I think we should all probably lean into a little bit more and recognize the value of, especially as we might be pursuing work that isn't in that space.
I absolutely agree. Yep. Project management. It's true. I think in my last episode, I was like, if you can produce a show, you can do anything. Like if you can create something out of nothing, then you can basically do anything in the corporate world where you have sometimes less stakes involved or less odds against you. But I completely agree with that.
Absolutely. It's a little bit less feeling like you're holding on by the ends of your nails or something on a cliff when you're in the corporate world, because you're like, I know that there's money there and I know that it's available to me. I just need to make you understand why it's available to me and why I need it. Versus in the arts, when it's a little bit like, is there money there? No. I think there might be some money there, but if there isn't any money
we love
there,
it. Yeah.
can we make some money appear?
No, money. Yeah, no, the money question is always there. The question mark is always there when it comes to the dance projects, but half the time you just do it because you're like, I just got to do something. Like I got to just do it. And hopefully there's money there. But if there's not, then like we fill the gap and we fill that void by doing something else.
Absolutely.
What's your next thing?
The next one I was going to talk about is another soft skill. It's empathetic leadership. I think specifically as this comes into play a lot more as choreographers and teachers, being able to understand other beings and being aware and cognizant of the factors that may be impacting someone's performance in the studio space and or theater space. I think we become really good at that, and we can usually tell within the first couple of 8 counts or first stretch or first warm up exercise that we do in a class what kind of experience it's going to be. Either they're all grumpy for some reason, I don't know, they couldn't get Taylor Swift tickets, or they are so happy because they did get their Taylor Swift tickets, or it's just a rainy, gloomy day outside and there's a lot of windows in the studio, so people feel crazy sleepy. So just being able to be a little bit empathic and like understand the bodies in the space that you're trying to work with is something we do on a daily basis as teachers and choreographers. And that's another skill that I think has really supported me as I've transitioned a little bit outside of the dance space and more into a corporate job and I'm a manager in that position where I have direct reports. So to be able to understand the experiences those people are going through and being able to lead them in a way that's going to support them and their career growth in their roles is something that I think was highly transferable between those two spaces.
Yeah, no, I think that was one of mine too. In my top 3 was just this like understanding of human connection and what that means. And how, I mean, I feel like I can be in meetings and like feel the room and be like, they're not into this. Like this icebreaker or like just this topic is really bringing a lot of like tense feelings. So what is that about? And there's something there that needs to be flagged, and like kind of raised up the flagpole to the people that can actually like do something about that. But like I feel like it's our spidey sense that we have. Or I think I refer to it as a dance superpower.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I completely agree. We've co-choreographed before, and I remember looking at our cast, and some days it was great. Some days we were really moving and we felt the energy and they had the energy. And then other days, like it was like pulling teeth to get, some of these undergraduates like in, like, we got to go, and we don't have time. We have to go. And it's different than a paid gig with rehearsals that are limited and like you come in focused with that because there's money on the line. But when you're in at a university and there's kind of this open book, open policy type thing on creation and preparing, yes, there's a deadline for the show, but oftentimes we are given ample amount of rehearsal time. So it was like a blessing and a curse to have that extra time because we had to really dial in on our dancers and how they were feeling because it's fluctuating between a 10-week term and like week 5 is going to suck because they're so stressed out from midterms and things like that. And you just have to take that. I think we actually I remember talking about that kind of stuff with you, like as we were choreographing, we were like, well, this is going to be week 5. If we get like 2 8 counts, success. Like that's all we need because they're not going to have the capacity to give us much more at this point. So
right.
Yeah, I love that. That's definitely another one of mine.
And like understanding on an individual basis what someone needs too, because even in that group experience that you were just talking about, I remember that there were times when there were particular dancers who either weren't getting the style or understanding what we were trying to convey, or maybe we just personalities didn't clash very well, or they clashed and they didn't mesh very well.
Right.
So understanding that maybe this particular dancer required you to work with them in a particular kind of way, or this one required me to work with them, or just conveying the style information in a different way. I think is something that once again becomes a hugely transferable skill for anyone who might be looking for that opportunity to move outside of dance, to think about, well, how do you normally operate within a choreographic or rehearsal experience anyways? What are all of the soft skills and hard skills that you apply in that space that can support you outside of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a third one for us?
Oh, I have like 7. So
let's do one more.
Okay. I'm going to talk about this one because I found it particularly interesting. This one's more of I guess it's kind of a hard skill. Some may argue that it's a soft skill, but one of the things that I've learned how to do over many years, and I think most people learn this one over their development as like an adult and a human being, and how to become a little bit more sage and understanding how people work, is negotiation. And we do it all the time as dancers. Well, maybe not all the time, but we should be doing it every time we are talking about our work. And it's a skill that many young dancers don't develop at the beginning of their careers, mostly because I feel like it's not taught. We don't really teach it in studios.
Right.
And then when you get to college, a lot of times the academic courses don't talk to you about negotiating your rates, and your value and your worth. So it's something that has always been very important to me. Even when I first started accepting my first like paid gigs, when I was a young dancer and choreographer still in undergrad, I was like, I know somewhat what I'm worth. I'm going to continue to learn what my value and my worth is. But I knew that whatever someone told me was not what their bottom dollar was, and that there was opportunity for me to gain more financial pay out of this conversation before engaging in work. And then now that I'm outside of dance a little bit more, and I'm in a corporate job, that I'm constantly in negotiation with vendors that I'm working with, and I'm like, both from a financial standpoint, like what is it going to cost us to use your product, to the negotiation of like, all right, what is it going to take for you to support this effort that I want to get across the finish line right now, while we have to put this other thing on the back burner. So negotiating both from a financial perspective and all the other perspectives that we can think of that require negotiation. I think that's one of the ones that we don't invest enough in the training of young dancers. But it's something we become extremely familiar with as we take on more of a teacher, choreographer, company director role, because you have to.
No, it's really interesting that you brought this up, and I completely agree with you that it should start at an earlier age, because as we're taught to kind of like learn how to be, to learn how to stand out and to get jobs and stuff like that, it's very submissive to what is being presented to us. It's a very submissive, and I think that there's a balance, right? You have to, like, if you're auditioning for this job and they're very detailed about what they want, you can't necessarily negotiate some things, but like pay, and just when people approach you for things, that's where the skill really comes in handy. And I feel like you're only really taught this as a dancer if you had a really good mentor. It's not part of like the curriculum as you're taking ballet, jazz, all of these things to like up your skills as a dancer. And even at auditions and stuff, it's just not a thing that happens. But if you have a good mentor, like I've had a good mentor, I know you've had good mentors. I would say even now in my later 30s, like if I was presented with something, I would call, I have a list of 2 people that I would call. It would be Peter Anthony from Florida, who was my boss for over a decade, and he was an incredible mentor. And I'd probably call you because I know this is like a focus of yours, and you take this part very seriously, and it's only beneficial to dance, to be able to take it that seriously, because we don't, it's kind of glossed over. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because I do agree with you that this negotiation, ways of negotiation are just kind of like, being confident in your value and presenting that to someone else, like that comes in handy, like far beyond the dance floor, to even just think about relationships, right? Like to be able to stand confidently in your worth and to express that to somebody else, like very clearly, like people would kill for that kind of like skill, because so many people don't have it. And I think it's really important. I agree that it's very, very important.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. And it's this thing that I kind of take a hard stance on, and some people that might rub the wrong way. But one of the things I tell all of my students all the time, my undergraduate students that I teach and my graduate students that I teach, is that you should never, ever need to take work without compensation unless there's some kind of direct, tangible benefit to you for taking that work without pay. Otherwise, in doing so, you're only continuing to be detrimental to our field, because we get taken advantage of so much. And it's sad, honestly, that I mean, we're already working against institutional structures and social structures and expectations of what we as dancers bring to the table. So then to turn around and say, oh yeah, I'm totally happy to choreograph this thing for you, no cost, nothing at all. Or I'm totally happy to be in this performance for you all weekend long or for 6 weeks or whatever. And all I need is a case of beer or whatever it may be. Like, we're just continuing to perpetuate the problem of not valuing us as artists. So yes, there are times and places when volunteering your craft may be beneficial to the community that you serve, but at the same time, I think it should be also personally beneficial to you. If you're not going to gain something out of it, whether it be a connection in the community that you want to have long term to be able to develop a program, or whether it's just personal gratification. Like, if you're going to get something that's meaningful to your soul out of it, then that may be valuable to you to take that work on for free. But no, unfortunately, that gratification doesn't put food on your table or gas in your tank. So
that's right.
I just want to encourage every young and old dancer alike to continue to brush up on those negotiation skills, because they're going to serve you tenfold over, both in your dance career and in any job careers or pivots that you may choose to take on forever. So yeah,
I feel like it's actually served me more in those, like the negotiation in dance is actually really, really hard. And really, really awkward. I feel like it's probably like the most awkward conversation. So to have it in a place like a corporate or whatnot, I feel like it's actually easier to have that conversation than it is if it was involving dance. So I feel like it's actually, that skill has served me more actually outside of the work that I do in dance.
Yeah, I agree. And it's wild. That is crazy to me that is the situation. I completely agree. That's the experience I had too when I was making my transition from being in academia a little bit less to my full-time corporate job, was that, first of all, there's an expectation that there will be negotiations for a job offer or for a salary. They just know it's coming.
Yeah.
And that's why it's normal. They're just like, all right, well, I know that he's about to ask me for this. So it's not an awkward thing at all. And you're dealing with a recruiter usually anyways. So that's the whole job of that individual, is to be able to take those counter offers and go back to the hiring manager and make those decisions. But in dance, it's like
it's just so personal.
It's so personal. For no reason.
For no reason. It's just business. Like, it's about money and like value. That's it. And it doesn't have to be a person. And the thing is like, I feel like in dance, we're so bound. Like, we're kind of funny because we're so like, we make our own rules, but then like when it comes to money, it's like, oh, we have none. So that's what we always work with. And it's like, wait a second. That's not the case. Right. It's just
having no money shouldn't be like the normal.
Right. Well, and a lot of times, especially in academia, this is kind of I'm going to say it. This is the crutch that a lot of dance departments lean on, is they're like, well, we don't have money. Let me tell you something. At a university, everybody has money. You have it. It's not equally dispersed. It is not equally dispersed, but you have it. So how you spend that money and how you can move those pots of money around, and like there are rules around what you can spend on and how you spend it. But the point, like, I'm like, I want dance departments to stop saying that they don't have money in academia, because they do. It's just how you spend it and what you focus your spending on. You know, and I'm not saying it's an easy job, but this whole idea of like negotiating where you're going to spend that money and put like, what is your focus and what's your goal that year? You might have to move some money around. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, I agree. And even if you don't have the money, like if it's not budgeted and it's not already ready in your existing coffers or your traditional lines of revenue, there's ways to get it.
And you can just ask.
Yeah. And I think so many people are afraid to ask or think we can't ask, or don't want to go through the negotiations that's involved with sitting down in front of a room full of deans or administrators or whoever it is to for lack of a better word, beg for what you need, then you're not going to go anywhere. So you have to be willing to step out on a limb and take it for the department to be able to get what you need, whether that be the salary for a new faculty member that is going to bring something unique to your department that you don't have, or whether it's for student scholarships because you're seeing reduced enrollment numbers, so you need to boost enrollment, or who knows, or for technical equipment if you just need a new sound system.
Yeah, which that's a real thing for a lot of dance spaces and dance departments. It's and here's the other thing that I've learned too, is like, if you can amp up your negotiation skills and you gain that confidence, even just to ask, you may not get the whole thing, but at least you'll get something. Like there's at least a portion, or there's some negotiation that you can make but just by asking. Like you may not get the whole thing, but you would get something to kind of help continue you to move forward, versus this stagnant like assumption that, oh, I'll never get that, so I'm not even going to ask, or I'm not even going to go out on that limb and even put that out in the universe, because it's just, we don't have money, we're not going to get it. It's like, well, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And then that gets bred into the culture. And as someone who is an avid applicant or candidate for professorships for many years over, I remember I experienced a job offer for a professorship at a university, and I had that exact exchange you just described. An offer was made. I countered right away, saying, this is what I need for my family to be able to survive and thrive. And their immediate response was, that'll never happen. They will never give you anything. This is the offer. You either take it or you leave it. And I said, okay. No, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's that's a heartbreaking thing, especially as someone this was pretty young in my career. I was just finishing up the program at Oregon. So to turn down a full-time tenure track job because the salary is trash, and that a department is not even willing to take a counter offer to their dean or administrator or whoever it is and say, hey, we want this person. This is who we're making the offer to. What can we do? Yeah. We might not be able to give him everything he's asking for, but what can we do?
Yeah. Can we pull something together? Some things of his list that he's asking for, what can we do should be the question. It's not, well, we can't do any of this. And I feel like that happens so often, not even just in dance departments, but smaller arts departments, romance studies, like I know that's happening over there too. And it's just like, if you really want good education and good instructors as a part of your department, which in turn affects the reputation of your department, therefore it in turn it goes beyond that and into the institution reputation as well. Like you have to go out on that limb and ask. You have to do it, and you just have to not be scared to ask, at least, or to try and ask the question, what can we do, instead of just ultimately giving up. But yeah, there is this perpetual culture as dancers. It's this take it or leave it culture. And I feel like that is so over. Like it's so over.
That's my second word of advice, I guess. So first of all, don't do work for free. And then second of all, be ready to step away. Because if it's not there, I don't know. Like, because
you're not,
in the long run, is it going to be worth it for your time?
Well, and you're not making those requests just because, or because you want to be, you want to cause, drama, or you want to give someone a hard time. You're not asking that, because what you're asking, and most likely this job that you're talking about, was that out of state. Like it would require you to moving costs out of state. Like I know, a lot of people know that is not cheap, and it can absolutely empty you because of how much everything costs to be able to make a move like that. And if the salary alone isn't going to cover your day-to-day, but then also be worth it for that extra, that push to even just get out there, you have to be able to walk away, because it's not like to drain yourself for what,
Right.
No, I love that. Do you have any other items on your list that you just absolutely have to say before we wrap up?
I think those were kind of my big ones.
I'm so glad you said negotiation. Like, it's such a Bryant topic. Like, you should teach an entire course on this in academia. Have you you should write one, create a course.
I haven't developed a course exclusively on negotiation, but I have been teaching a lot of graduate classes for the MFA program at the university I teach at now.
Okay.
And I did dedicate a whole unit to contract development and negotiation. So I've been able to put this work into practice, I guess, that I've been doing all these years. And it was actually a really fun experience. So what I was able to do was, we have a huge law school at the university I work at. And I reached out to a professor there who specializes in contract law.
Nice.
And we collaborated circling it back. We collaborated on the development of a contract workshop, essentially.
Yeah.
And she brought over 7 of her graduate students, her law students, and who partnered with our 7 law MFA dance students. And so they had a one-on-one experience with a lawyer or a pre-professional lawyer, and to build out a contract that they wanted to be able to use for going forward post-graduation. And and I learned a lot from this too. There were things, I've been developing my contract for years, and it's continued to grow and grow. My contract now for even just a standard guest teaching job is 12 pages, something stupid, but it's there's all these provisions in there that we don't even think about. Most of the contracts that we deal with as dancers is just having a conversation with a studio owner or an artistic director or whoever it is that we're working with.
Very informal. Yes.
Yeah. They're like, we'd love to have you. Great. How much are you paying? This. Okay, cool. And then that's the end of it. And then you just hope you get paid at the end of it, because there's nothing other than a gentleman's agreement that you've engaged in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You nailed it. That literally is what happens. I love that you collaborated with a law professor, and that, because you have to protect, any contract, you're trying to protect your assets, right? We are our own asset in this, our bodies and our service as teachers or choreographers, whatever service we're providing, that is our asset. And to kind of think of it from that lens is so foreign and probably uncomfortable for a lot of dancers. But if we can just get over that and think of it that way, I wonder if it would, I wonder how it would change dance and just the negotiations of how we work in dance. I think you have a course that you need to write, sir.
Yes.
I will look for that.
It all out.
I will look for that in the 2024 catalog, course catalog, wherever you're teaching.
I'll just start my own online school.
You can just do it. Lots of people do it. I support this. Well, thank you.
I would like to turn the question back on you. Is there a
go
skill that we haven't talked about that you feel was extremely valuable to you as you kind of transitioned into less dance work?
Outside of the stuff we've talked about,
or it might even be the most valuable, just something you might not have thought of that you've experienced.
I mean, honestly, it's the multitasking. That at least in my current role and the career that I've kind of built in the department that I'm working in now, I'm a support role through and through for an executive, and then basically for an entire department. So the multitasking and the being able to keep a cool head under all of the different things that you're doing at the same time has been really beneficial. And I've really just think I think about dance and just how that the lessons that I've learned in dance and the multitasking of all the different things you kind of have to pay attention to when you're dancing, not just the performative aspect itself, but the creative process and the multitasking of producing a show, of collaborating with dancers. That multitasking talent has really come in handy in my career that has been completely outside of dance. I'm able to do a lot of things at one time and not get very overwhelmed about it. Like, yes, there are times where, you know, I feel like I need to just lay on the floor in my office and just breathe. But most of the time I can just kind of like keep it together and keep going and finish, because the show must go on. Like, that is the thing in my mind all the time. I'm like, we got to keep going. We have to keep moving forward. So that push to move forward and then being able to multitask to get me through that push has probably been the most valuable, at least at this point in my career. But everything you've talked about today, 100%, like those have all come in handy to kind of get me where I am today. And I have to like nod my hat to dance, and like some of those lessons, those were harder to learn. Like, we learn them the hard way sometimes. But for the most part now, because of those lessons and because of those experiences of the past, I can take that and be like, okay, here's how I'm going to play this, or here's how I'm going to lay my cards out, because I think this is the way to do this now, because I know I feel confident in my value and I feel confident in my worth, and I know what I can produce. So if you want me to be a part of this, this is what it's going to take.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for the great recommendation of the wine. And I'm glad that you're enjoying yours too, your random Trader Joe's wine.
That's right. This one's probably not going to be so random for me anymore. It's probably going to start becoming a regular purchase. Yeah.
Look at you and your red wine drinking. It's just going.
I know. Good thing my husband really likes reds too, because I would probably never be able to finish the bottle on my own before it expired.
7 days. That's about the cutoff. But yes, thank you so much for joining me today. I loved our conversation. You can find this episode on Spotify and some other platforms, and YouTube. You can watch it there as well. I will link Bryant's information down below in the show notes. Otherwise, you can check out danceuncorkedpodcast.com to learn more about this episode, Bryant and this wine and his wine. And until next time, we'll see ya. Cheers.
Cheers.